Welcome, everyone. This is the work session of the Pitkin County Board of County Commissioners for Tuesday, February 3rd. We are now going to go into a discussion of the Glacier Open Space Management Plan, a presentation to the board. I'd just like to refresh our memories that we as a board do not adopt these plans. They are adopted by the Open Space and Trails Board. However, our comments are welcome as you have taken them throughout and kept us updated on these. If you'd just like to introduce yourself and make the presentation.
I'll do it. Thanks, Rachel. I'm Gary Tenenbaum. I'm the Assistant Director of the Open Space and Trails Program. And bringing to you guys today, thanks for giving me a little time to kind of give you where we are at with the Glacier Open Space Management Plan. As Rachel said, the Open Space and Trails Board is the one that adopts it. However, in these management plans, there's a lot of implementation steps. And in the implementation, anytime any of this budget stuff comes, it's the BOCC that makes that final decision on all budget matters. So, and then one of our goals is to bring the BOCC along while we're doing the management plan. As of today, it's February 3rd. We are almost a year into the development of this management plan. It's been an amazing process. The public has been very engaged. All our meetings have been attended by no less than 30 people. And so we've had, I think this is our 13th public meeting or 14th public meeting we've had on this management plan. It's great. We have over 200 email addresses that we send all this information out to. And we've gotten a ton of public comment on it. And we've been working with the Town of Basalt, who's a partner, the Eagle County, who's a partner, and we've also been working with Mid-Valley Trails, who did put some money into the original salt and stall purchase, and we've had stakeholders from ag, recreation, neighborhoods, and wildlife, and now we're at the point where on January 8th, the Open Space and Trails Board adopted the plan. And so, the process now is, I wanted to give you guys an update where we're going, where we're at. And also, Eagle County we do need to get this plan adopted by Eagle County Board of County Commissioners due to the fact there's some regulations in this plan, and to be able to allow our rangers to enforce these regulations. We're working with Eagle County on getting an adoption of those, of the management plan and the regulations so we can do that. So, the big pieces of this plan, and I just gave you the big overall map, as you guys have all seen. It's a pretty significant shot of Hookspur area, and Willits is obviously over on this side. This Crown Mountain Park is up here, and here's Glacier property and the Salt and Stall property that we now all call as the Glacier Open Space. And it really provides every little piece of our mission. The Open Space and Trails mission is, to protect scenery, to conserve wildlife habitat, to try to protect and enhance historic agriculture, and recreation access is a big one, and this property has all four of those in there. And so I'll go into the first big piece of this that really got, basically one of the reasons why we purchased this property was for agriculture. And we worked with our steering committee and a lot of agriculture as a subcommittee group, and try to figure out a way to how we're going to work this property in the best way possible for the water, for the land, and also for, we have this, startups of, community agriculture, local ag, and all this stuff. And so what we've done is break it out into 6 different lease areas, keeping big pieces going. Lease B is a pretty large piece, 94 acres. Lease A is 45 acres. These two have been the main pieces of the cattle operations that have been going on for hundreds of years out there. And so, and then we have some areas that, like Lease C, this is not the greatest of ag land, but we have some interest in people trying to restore that piece and get that land in better shape for ag. And then Lease D is actually a pretty good area. And then you have Lease F, which was the old garden area where the old barn is, and a little area on the other side, Lease E, And so trying to break up some smaller pieces for, some local ag, we're starting to see that since the adoption, we put these out to lease. The leases of, the proposals have come back in. We are working through those right now, but we've seen, what we really were hoping to see is we've got some smaller producers looking at the smaller pieces. We've got some of the more traditional ag and ranching looking at the bigger pieces. And I think, when we decide on the leases are going to come to you guys for approval. But I think in the end, we're going to have a whole mix of different types of ag going on at that property. It's pretty exciting, and we'll see how it all works in the end, because we do have to work on the irrigation and how we're going to get water to all these pieces, how they're going to work. We were talking about bees before and apiaries, and how we're going to get, if two people want to do apiaries, you can't really do two bee things right next to each other. So how we're going to work with all the lessees together, and so it's exciting and it's happening, and you guys will be hearing about that during this month and early next month. So that's the ag piece. And the second piece that had some of the most, where is it? There. Is recreation. That had some of the most public comments, is the recreation piece out here. And so here's the Rio Grande Trail. Here's the old roads on the property. This new trail we created when we bought the Salt and Stall property provides access up onto the crown. And so with the public process and the steering committee, we really work through how we're going to have public access on this property, that it doesn't impact agriculture, but it also really provides access to the crown, which was one of the main pieces of purchasing this property. And so then we found we have these old roads, we have this brand new trail that we built here. We can really, the goal of the plan is we found an area right here that's going to be outside the ag areas, along outside ditch areas. And I think once we get the lessees on board this summer, we'll plan out how we can do access to the Rio Grande, to the crown. And then, as we saw, parking was one of the big issues that the public fixated on, and we came up with a preferred alternative, and that's the parking area where the Rafta parking lot, they only have about 5 spots here. We're working with the neighboring landowner here to purchase some additional property, an additional acre, to provide a much bigger parking lot here, put all the parking in one location. There's already a porta potty here, have all of it in one location, and then you access on the Rio Grande Trail to the property. It does add a little bit of distance between the two, but it keeps the ag in these areas. And basically one of the other pieces was the equestrians were worried about trying to walk on the road, and with this parking area being full of hikers and bikers, they were like, how are you going to enforce if one of the pull-through spots is there? So we have an option to work with the lessees to potentially do some horse trailer parking at the house site. We're going to have a turnaround anyway for the agriculture producers. So, we're going to work with them this spring. That's in the management plan. So,
George?
A couple questions on that, Gary. So
Sure.
on the trails, do you expect to start any construction of trails next summer?
no, next summer, yes, 2016. 2015, what we're going to do is when the property opens, when the wildlife closure ends on May 15th, we're going to do it through the access that we have now. It's on the Rio Grande, and then you have the main road in here. We have access on there, so we're going to do the access right away through. So you do have, it's going to be open, but any new trails will be designed this year, because up here this gets really steep, these roads, and so we need to start planning some new trails to get them more sustainable, and for hikers, bikers, and horses to be able to actually use them.
And then how will you separate horses, the equestrians, certainly from bikers, more than even hikers?
and that's a good one. What we're going to do is, from this point on, we're going to have all this pretty wide, and it's pretty open, so you can see. Once you get up here, the plan is to have the biking and hiking go on a sustainable track we got to design, and then the horses use the road, and then we basically work with the horse community to find the steepest parts of the road that aren't comfortable for people to ride, and create little alternatives away from the road for the equestrians. Because a lot of the road up, there are some pretty steep sections, and so some of those steep sections we can find alternatives, and separate it where the horses stay on the roads. Because the great thing is in the BLM, the resource management planning that's going on, and all future trails, a lot of these roads remain, and a lot of the roads on the BLM are, would be really good equestrian trails and equestrian routes. And so trying to find a way to get them continuing up to connect to the BLM roads, but having the other users, especially bikes, that are biggest conflict, have their own system that stays away from the agricultural pieces up there, and it stays away from the equestrian, so we have some separation.
One last question.
George?
Is the Bandit Trail down by Rock Bottom Ranch, will that be reclaimed? And if so, who will do that?
The BLM's working on that. They're trying to reroute it onto full BLM property. They're trying to get it off the private property right now. So I think they're going to spend, because they still don't have the plan fully adopted yet. So I think they're going to spend 2015 re-putting that route somewhere else, realigning it somewhere else, and then they basically should reclaim all the pieces of the old route that, especially were on private property, but the unsustainable pieces too.
Okay. The other thing that brings up for me, George, and I realize that we don't have to discuss it at length now, but our earlier comments to the BLM on the management plan, and that they should come up with a recreational management plan of the Crown. And I know they've been a little full with a lot of other issues they're dealing with in their district, but it may be time to kind of prod them a little and say, there's going to be potentially more public access here now. We really need to put that wildlife protection management plan into place, start working on it. And, so I think that that's something for us to take up in the future.
And I completely agree, and I hope if you guys do any joint meetings or anything with them on it, is one of our goals is to spend 2015 working with them on that exact thing. Let's not just plan the trails on this. Let's plan the trails on this part of the Crown so it works as a system and it works for all users. And it also, one of the things is we wanted to work with the agricultural operators up here.
Yeah.
And because we can find control points where they would like to keep the recreation away from some of the watering areas and other things. I think we could. So, the BLM says they're committed to it. Well, I think we just need to keep pushing to make sure that happens.
Thank you. Any other questions at this point? Should Gary continue? Okay, go ahead, Gary. You have about
Sure.
17 more minutes.
No, basically, those are the two big pieces of the property. There's going to be no other recreation right now on this piece, really, truly, because a lot of it, the majority of this is for ag. And we're going to be working with whoever we choose as the leases to figure out where the water's going to go, what kind of ags we're going to put on there. So the recreation's really going to be contained to the main access route, which will be this in the future, but this for the temporary for this year, the Rio Grande, and all the parking will be out here. And we'll be working on the plan for that parking in 2015. One of the big things I think they've also copied you on it, and they've been talking to us, is like there is a neighbor, the Frenches that live over there, and we're going to work with the Frenches and Michael Carricart, who owns the property, to develop a landscaping plan that works for the parking lot and also helps screen some of the parking lot from the neighbors. And so, on that, the only other big thing, and I can leave this map up, is, wildlife was also a big concern, is, this whole area of the Crown is, if I put up, I think I have the wildlife map, it's shows it pretty well. Let's see. Oh, I don't have a wildlife map. But basically, these entire areas outside of the ag areas are critical winter range for deer now. And so to protect that, we actually are putting a full closure on, the glacier trails, not necessarily the ag areas, but the glacier trails will be closed from December 1st through May 15th. And one of the things that we're working on, which is new, and it could potentially go to other properties, is trying to not necessarily have a static closure, but to have a closure that is, potentially movable. And so May 15th is the date, but if snow conditions, if we have a really dry year and the elk are already starting to move up, and the deer are starting to move up, we can work with Colorado Parks and Wildlife and our wildlife biologists that we are consultants and figure out, can we open it earlier? But it's a work to be seen if we can do that. Right now it's May 15th, so property's not going to open to the public till May 15th, and after that, they'll have the roads, and then we're going to keep everyone informed. We have a huge email list, and we're going to keep everyone informed of all future meetings, and hopefully we'll keep the goodwill that was really created through the steering committee process, and the trust that we built with the neighbors and also with the other users. Hopefully we can do that. The ag is going to be a huge piece. I really hope it does become something that is kind of a model for the valley. As we'll talk about next week, we got a lot of other agricultural properties, and hopefully, in the past we never really got much interest in the ag on other properties. And this was the first time we put out a lease bid, and we got more than one lease bid, and more than just a little written thing said, "I'll take care of your water." So we're looking forward to seeing where that goes. Other than that, basically, we'll keep you guys updated when we're going to go to the Eagle County Commissioners, but that date's not set.
And that actually brings up a question I was going to ask Gary. There was so much work done in the glacier management plan, and looking at how to really manage the ag going forward with a little more of a microscope than before. Are you anticipating that the older leases, as they come up for renewal, will go through more of that sort of process for requests for proposals and garnering interest, maybe having potential stakeholder meetings first and things like that?
I mean, basically, that's the goal. We have an agricultural lease bid process that we talked about at the last joint meeting, but it was, we're trying a whole new process to allow people to lease these lands to do more than just ranching, is to potentially do that. So, hopefully we'll be able to do that. We're actually a work session next week to talk about the rest of the ag pieces with you guys, so we could talk about that, because it's a significant issue. We have about 285 acres total of irrigated ag land that's leasable now, and so we're getting to that point where there's some significant, and this is showing there's some significant interest.
So Gary, when you talk about lease bids, does that mean that we're actually having a fee associated with the different leases? And if so, is it based on acreage or use, or?
Basically, when you put the proposal out, is part of the criteria of judging is, what's the fee you're willing to pay? And it was interesting because there's no magical number. It's like, with asphalt we can get a good number, but with this, there's no magical number. But the great thing is we're going to have a revenue source. It's not going to be a huge amount of money, but it's going to be enough money to potentially pop back into these properties to improve the irrigation, to improve the fencing, to improve things that that really help the overall property better, and hopefully it gets enough money to do better efficiency with our irrigation and stuff like that.
So then is that part of the negotiation once you decide on the leasee, or vice versa? The leasee has to determine what they can actually afford to pay. How does that process work?
They propose a fee to pay to us, and then we get all the leases options out there, and if someone on the 94 wants to pay $40, $20 an acre, whatever, then this person better be paying at least the same amount. and we could work on that. So we're trying to come up with the bigger pieces. We're trying to come up with what works best, because there's also the potential, like, you know, somebody's talked to us about, you know, I'll share in my hay cost, like what I would produce, because you have a national index for what hay costs, and you could potentially say, hey, today we pulled out 2,700 tons of hay on this property, so the county gets 40% and I'll get 60% of that, and so my cost to you will be that 40%. So we're working on that. I mean, right now it's interesting to see how we're going to work through that piece, but most likely it's going to be a cash payment, or you know, basic. I think right now most of it is just going to be a fee. It looks like a fee per acre for the bigger pieces. It'll be interesting to see how it gets determined. But when we bring them back to you for approval, I'll make sure that we tell you how that cooked out.
Okay. Other questions for board members? Okay.
Great.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
guys.
much for the
Great,
presentation,
thanks.
Gary. It's been great work, and we
Thanks.
send our thanks to all your staff and the public.
I will be back. I
Okay.
will be back.
Does anybody else would like to take a 5-minute break until we come up with the next item?
I'm running over to the court.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know you have to step out for a minute. We will go ahead and proceed. And the next item on our agenda is the library expansion update.
Jody, do you need me to go out and grab Dave? We'll have you run out there. Did you go this way?
Are you in living?
Did you re-injure it, Jody? Or?
Did re-injure.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Actually, it didn't get re-injured, it just never got.
Healed up. Here we go.
Sorry.
Just in time.
I found one, but not the other two.
Kelly? Yeah. Do you want to wait for?
No, Patty had a different appointment. She had to go for a few minutes.
Well, today we're here to give you an update on the library expansion project. We are breaking ground in 14 days, so 2 weeks from today. We are having a groundbreaking ceremony and followed by an open house on February 17th.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
From 4 to 6.
Yeah, 4 to 6 p.m. So, and I believe that the board is planning on coming over for a short period during the groundbreaking. So, we're excited. We've been working really hard with the architects, the construction firm, and our entire team and the library board to give you this update. What I was hoping today is just to go through this drawing and give you just an overview and a scope of what we're doing, and what we're seeing here. So last night at City Council, the council approved the construction for the Galena Plaza project, which is a city project. They approved this area in the yellow. So the city will be working in the alleyway. They'll be working in front along the west side of the courthouse, and then in here. This will all be to whatever they had originally designed. So permeable pavers, drainage, new sewer lines, all the utilities will be replaced. And the main goal of that entire project is to waterproof the garage, which is this entire square here. And that will all be killed off and re-waterproofed, and then this will just be sod as they go through their major building master plan project. But we just kind of wanted you to know that that yellow area has been approved by the city council to go into full construction and redo that whole thing. The reason I tell you that is because we are going to be in here where we have our easement along the lines here, where that dark gray box is. That is where we will be doing our construction and building our new building. Our staging will be in here. We will be closing the alleyway right in here for a crane for a short period of time. I think it's like 6 weeks, but the rest of the time we will have open access. That doesn't mean the city won't be closing it for whatever period when they're working on their. Our commitment to the bank is to keep this area open so that they can stay in business at all times. So that is a commitment that we've made. Let's see, we have spent a lot of time on our noise mitigation, and we're to make sure that we've got our construction fence, our noise mitigation within our construction area. And then I know that the city has their perimeter fence that will go out here that is also another layer of noise protection. And then we've also have inserts going into the windows from this entrance here of the courthouse all the way to this side so that the courts won't be disturbed. So the inserts are already in the courtroom, in the district courtroom. We went up and just looked at them. They look good. We know they're temporary. Courts all know about it. They're excited. They're glad that we're taking care of the noise ahead of time. Mm-hmm. What else do we have going on here? As far as the expansion goes, I'll go to the next slide.
Jody, can I ask you a question on that one first? So, I may have just missed it, but when will this start and how long will it take? And then where will the sheriff's and the police cars be parked?
Great question. So we will start in here on this square, like where it goes from the entrance of the back door or the east side of the library. We'll be starting from here over. The whole thing will be closed off, but we need to break into the parking structure. So we'll be closing off 2 levels of the parking garage. There will be rerouting and new painting on the floor, giving people directions, new signage down there during that closure, and then we'll put it all back when it's done. But for 2 months on the top level and 1 month on the lower level, we will be in here cutting out the twin T's that are actually holding up the parking garage there. This is part of the waterproofing, but it's also so that we can lower this part of the building down to the level that the library is now, and that is the new children's room, and I'll show you that in the next slide. We intend to be in here until the end of the year as far as building up. So we believe that, we're hoping that within our construction schedule right now, that this will be done, this garage work, getting this ready for the building to be built on it, will be done by the end of June, end of June, and then we'll start building up, and then building the rest of the building will be till like November, and then we'll go inside. So we have a commitment. We've been working really closely with the city of Aspen. We have a construction agreement that's actually being signed hopefully today by everyone, that we are committed to working together. We have some agreements with them that says that on June 30th we have to get out of the way so that they can start doing some of their alley work. This whole alley is being, also Aspen Sanitation is going to be in this alleyway as well. And they will be digging down to their 12 or 18 feet, replacing that sewer line, and then this alleyway gets the elevation changes on it so it's not so steep. It also becomes a one-way. So that's part of the work. And then the police parking over here, we've been working for a couple of years now to get all of the sheriffs over into the parking lot behind the jail. And then the city has a plan to move some of the police parking over in front of this building and then over on this Kansas property. So they have their own plan to keep moving some of that stuff over as well. I answer all the
Yeah,
questions?
thank you.
Okay.
Any questions at this time, Michael, or anyone else?
So I want to talk about the addition first, and the addition is the area in the blue. So this is everything that's being added. This is where we're putting the new twin T's in to hold up this part of, to lower and hold up this part of the building. This will be our new meeting room. There's a nice big open window here, or doors that slide out, and it becomes part of a vibrant area for the Galena Plaza. We will have a new restrooms in here. This will become the primary restroom for the main level. So these restrooms will be more for the children. And then there's a little kitchen here. So this is kind of more of the waiting lobby area. There is a gate that will go here so that this area can be used after hours when the library is closed. Right now, if somebody wants to use the library, somebody has to come in and schedule their time to let them in and monitor. So we'll work out some operational plans for that. The new addition has a little screen and viewing area here so they could do some plays. They have a bigger area here for presentations, movies, you know, so that you can constantly change the audience to however you want the room to sit and have whatever the event is. And again, the opening of that community room goes into that kitchen there. We do have storage here. We have an egress that we had to have for a building department. And then this area is the children's room. And then this, so everything that's highlighted here, we have funding for. We're building it. It's funded for the addition and the expansion for the children's room. And so we're moving full steam ahead. Our permits, we expect to be issued any minute. So we're getting really, really close. And so again, this is pretty much set. The furniture and stuff in here we're working on as well. So whether these bookcases and all of that are set exactly like this is not set in stone yet. It's still in design. But I just kind of want to give you an idea of what that expansion looks like.
Jody, there's stairs there. I thought we were bringing all to one level. We're not?
We are bringing the children's area to one level, but this we couldn't get away from. This is still elevated. It matches the grade here. There is a little amphitheater for the children here, and they have their own little door. But yeah, this is elevated with the stairs that are there now, and then this all becomes one level. The reason we did that is that we would have had to build ADA ramps, that kind of thing, for this area and ADA access, where this area, it is compliant, where they can come in and use this area, or they can come in this way. But to have that two levels wouldn't have been very useful, friendly for the kids. That we also have a loop system for the hearing impaired that's going in this building, in this room, so that very much like the other libraries in the valley are using the loop system.
George?
In the new meeting room, is it going to be set up for AV and for capability for grassroots?
We're still working on that. The numbers that came in on the grassroots equipment was very expensive, and it's an ad alternate for us if we can afford it, but right now we're not sure. And it kind of depends on, as we break up, or, you know, open up this area, we don't know what's under here still and what we have to repair. You know, we have a lot that we're doing on the city's easement as far as peel back, cutting down trees. We're removing all the trees on our side, and then the city's doing all the rest of the big ones. So,
Okay. John,
And
answer?
George, we've had very preliminary discussions about, you know, if the county, you know, if we felt we needed a backup room again, that may be an ad alternate that we may want to come back and talk about in the future. And I think we'll have a better sense of that as the library's project moves forward and as we do our planning for expansion of the courthouse annex addition.
Yeah, it would seem that at the very least having it wired, even if we're not buying all the equipment initially in the first phase, would be the important step.
Yeah, we're paying to have all the conduit in and have the room configured, but we don't have the wherewithal to put the actual equipment in yet.
Okay.
So that small room off the kitchen is for the grassroots control room.
Right here.
Nope,
Nope.
up.
Don't they,
there.
oh, right there, so they will have line of sight of the meeting room. Okay, there we go.
Yes, they will.
Okay.
They are inside.
Good. Okay, other board questions right now? Well,
Okay.
please continue.
So then again, moving to the, well, let me just show you the next floor. So the addition, over the children's room, we have a green roof here. So there's some seating out here, then there's some planters. They will be maintained out here, but it kind of keeps people, they can read here, but they're not actually out on the railings, that kind of thing. This roof here is a green roof, and it's all for drainage. It helps get our water off of the building, and we use that water wisely, and then it helps filter it out.
And then under the grid, is that a green roof as well? Yeah,
Jim?
No.
No. That is not.
that's just a roof.
No.
Okay.
I just want to make sure you could see those. So on the main level, when we go inside for the interior work, which is everything other than what's marked up there, it's all really preliminary. We haven't worked out all of our budgets yet of whether or not we can really, what we can afford. We're still doing some fundraising, but this is just the conceptual idea of what we're doing. We'd like to have a grand staircase and get rid of these stairways on the sides and kind of make it that more open. We're infilling the mezzanine here gets filled in so that we can have a better teen area.
Okay.
Again, the stairway, we've got, different areas and study rooms, places for people to, congregate. And I can't really read all that stuff of what these areas are. We have a maker's room on the main level. So what I think we're trying to do is really make the main level a very vibrant, open, active area. So more of the periodicals that people use a lot, just more vibrant. Coffee bar there, the maker's room, some, I'm fumbling here, I can't remember what they are.
Teen area.
The teen areas back here, so more active. And then the lower level and the upper level have their own kind of own specialty. So the mezzanine, again, what's this area?
Fiction.
Again? The fiction, and then
Periodicals, collaborative study.
and so and then
Really, yeah, like, we couldn't hear quite all of that. Let's keep going.
Jody, what is open then to the downstairs? I mean, or is this a solid second floor now?
this is all open right in here. This is still open. And so these are the skylights, or the skylights that you see now. They're not moving. Hopefully we'll get them replaced. And this is existing. It's open there, and there's a walkway. So this all stays. We're only filling in this little piece.
Okay.
It's just really to give the children's room a lid
Mhm.
and make it more useful for them, and to give us a little more space up on the air. This is the lower level. Kathy, would you like to explain the lower level?
Oh, okay, sure. Well, the lower level is anticipated to, that it'll be the quieter, more contemplative part of the library. This is where the nonfiction collection will all be housed, and then also we'll have the music collection down on the Aspen Mountain side of the building. So in the band that you see that's above those book stacks there, that's going to be an area that is provided for digital content creation. So over on the left-hand side there where you see that triangle, that's actually denoting a green wall with a camera pointing at that wall. And so that will be there for people that are trying to make videos and be able to then fill in their own background, like if you're doing the weather forecast based on the library. And then on the other side is a small room that will have computer equipment and software for people to put together good digital presentations. And then you'll have a bank of computers there for the public, and on the other side of that bank of computers are listening seats that have listening pods, I guess you would say, for people to enjoy the music collection, kind of a quiet little fun area. And then over on the Mill Street side, casual seating. And then the staff areas will be along the alley there, and this puts all of the staff, almost all of the staff except for the children's room staff, into one area, which, as you've probably known from your studies, I'm working on the Courthouse Plaza building, by grouping everybody, that makes more efficient use of space. So the number of staff in the building stays the same as it is now, and I think actually we're probably losing a little bit of staff room, but making more efficient use. So.
And that's because the main staff area on the main level is all moving down there, and that's going to be part of the reconfiguration where you check in now at the front desk?
Yes, yeah, and in newer libraries, what the service model is to have very small circulation desks, and they're more just kind of like perches for the staff to be when they aren't out helping the public, and to have self-checks equipment that works really well as opposed to the old antiquated equipment that we've never had much success with. If you have self-check equipment that's really easy to use, it's really, really easy for people to check out their own books. You basically, have your library card, and then you just set your pile of books, and everything's checked out. So that way, the public can do what the public can do for themselves easily, and it frees the staff up to help with people with a lot of computer issues, download questions.
No, I just wanted to kind of reconfirm that part of that red area is the existing offices on that main floor, and it's going to be reconfigured for the children's area use.
Right, right. So there, right next to the front doors, there will be the children's librarian's office, because we will keep that staff with the children, but everybody else will be grouped downstairs.
Please continue if you had other.
Yeah, so really kind of spreading, right now you go in there and there's just a bank of computers, really kind of distributing those onto each floor, just making it, kind of getting people to disperse throughout the building and use the whole building. Again, I think the last thing that I would point out to you is, again, it's a very collaborative project with the City of Aspen, Aspen Sanitation, and Picken County. And, there are concerns on the county side that, about these timelines and meeting all of this, and hopefully none of us holding each other up, and just really being able to stay on top of our schedules. And
Are they using the same contractor that we're going to be using?
no, they're using PCL,
Okay.
and we have FCI.
Okay. And we're setting up joint meetings between the two?
Right, well, we're having our kickoff meeting tomorrow afternoon from 4 to 5 o'clock, and it's a neighborhood impact meeting. So we've done about 40 flyers out to all of our neighbors. I sent emails out to all of the county and city people that might be impacted. The jail, the dispatch, and I think I did 42 emails there, really reaching out, and we had it on the newspaper for the last couple of days, so really hoping to get a good turnout so people can really understand and see what that is. We've asked the city and their design team and construction team to join us tomorrow.
And where will that be held?
It will be held at the library in the meeting room,
Okay.
4 to 5.
Thank you.
We'd love to have anybody that's concerned or want to know more to please join us.
Other board questions? Any other I see we have John Wilkinson here with the library board. Would you like to address this at all or anything on this, John?
Yes, I would. I'd like to
We'll go ahead and put it
take
on.
a few minutes just to express our appreciation for the work that the staff, including John Peacock and John Ely and Tom Oken, helping us with this project at this point. You haven't seen any dirt move yet. It's going to happen, but we put hundreds of hours into this whole project up to this point, if it wasn't for the staff. But I'd really especially like to thank Jody Smith sitting next to me, and she's going to be wishing I wouldn't say this, but she's very modest in what she's done for the library. Without her help on this project, we'd be really struggling along with what we're doing here today. She doesn't seek recognition for any of this, but she's there all the time, helping us out through this entire project. Her heart is into this thing, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. She's very enthusiastic and helps us through this whole thing. The board, we tend to be dreamers. You know, we like looking at this stuff. We like saying, wouldn't it be great to have a maker's room? And a maker's room, wait till you see this thing. This is like cutting edge of technology, helping the community and our children and the young adults and the teens develop media, which is where education is going, and we're doing all these things. So we like sit around and dream about these projects. Jody brings us back to the hard case of reality. Is like, you want plugs over there. You like, she's really the boot on the ground to help us through this project. So the board of directors of the library are extremely grateful for her efforts and the oversight that she's giving the library and the public on this project. And we owe her a debt of gratitude and a round of applause for her work. So those are my comments. Thank you very much for your support as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
One last thing I would like to just point out too is that Pat Bingham created a video, and it's out right now. I think you can go to
The library website.
and view it. It's 8 minutes, but I heard it's really good and I haven't seen it yet.
Can't wait.
But the public, if they want to view it, it's on the Pitco Live.org.
John, do you have any other comments for us on this or anything?
Yeah.
Final?
Well, I'll just make a quick comment. I think Walt Disney once said, if you can dream, you can make it happen. And I just want to acknowledge not only staff, as you have done, John, but certainly the library board. This is a long time coming. Of course, you had a setback a few years ago when you didn't get the support from the voters to go to bond, but it didn't really deter you. You just adapted and were able to continue your dream and your vision, which is going to be a great community asset. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd second those comments. John?
And not to put a downer on anything, but this is going to be a remarkably complex project, as Jody's already alluded to, given what we're building over and the partnerships and the constrained space that we're working in. And so we're going to be keeping a very close eye on it. We're going to be watching. There's probably a lot more critical milestones in this construction project than you would see in a typical construction project. So we will be keeping you informed. I know it's keeping Jody up at night every now and then thinking about all the possibilities, and Jim and so just be aware that this is more complex than your standard construction project. It's a kickoff to a couple that the county is looking at right now, so we're I think getting a good leg up on this, and just appreciate the work again. I'll echo, I know Jody's put heart and soul into this. I'd also recognize the library board and staff again, so it's been a lot of doing to get to this point, and we still have to turn the first shovel.
Right.
I
Well,
have one other question.
Yes,
again.
please.
So Kathy, is the plan still to relocate some of the books, all the books, to the old art museum for X amount of time, or how's that going to happen?
Yeah, that's the current plan. We're still working on to finish the drawings for the renovation of the building, and when those are done, then we'll go out to bid, and a lot of it's going to have to do with the timing. What we asked City Council if they would let us borrow the power plant for 5 months, starting April 15th. And we've had a couple of weeks delay here and there. So if everything moves along the way we hope, then what we would do is move about 1/3 of the collection down to the power plant. And the rest, we've gotten permission from Related Westpac to store the rest of the collection in a parking garage in Snowmass Village in some area that they had available. And we would enter into an agreement that would be re-upped every 6 months, hopefully for a maximum of 18 months of storage of those materials out there if we need the full 18 months. But the thought is that if we could get out of the building and let the contractor have at it, they would be able to get the construction project done much more quickly, and then we would have less expense because they assure us that the less time they're here, the less it will cost us. So anyway, that's we're trying to help them by getting out of their way.
So will the library actually be closed for any time?
Well, I think there'll probably be, a few days here and there, but for the most part, we will try to remain open. And with having a lot of the collection and storage, we will have to rely on the kindness of our neighboring libraries and borrow books in on the courier system, using the patron place holds by going to the catalog and just saying request this item. And then that way it usually takes a couple of days to get that material in. It's gives you access to 30 million items that way, and we would aim to keep out the most heavily used parts of the collection. For instance, so almost all of the children's collection would be available because this will be over the time of the summer reading program. And anyway, try to make it as easy on the users as possible. But I think there's going to be some pain involved, but I think the gain at the end is going to be worth it.
Thank you.
And I would also add that if we find that we would be able to move at the end of May or a few weeks or even a month later, I'd love to go back to city and just see where they're at and they're making their decisions and see if there was opportunity for us to just shift the 5 months further. But again, we're not going to know that until we actually get our bids in, know our numbers and what we can do.
Jeez, and I was hoping you were going to have the mother of all book sales, We love those. But I want to thank everyone for their hard work on this as well, and certainly the city for its cooperation, and hope we continue to go forward in the spirit that was the original grant of the land area from the county library to the city for the parking garage. Which they would not have had a place to put a parking garage if we hadn't been working cooperatively then. And I know it's gotten more complex now, but that spirit of partnership is what should guide this project going forward.
I'm really getting that waterproofing on.
Yes, yeah, I'd love to see that really work.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And I think we are scheduled to start our memos of interest at 2 o'clock, so we'll just take a little 7-minute break and let some staff come in who's going to be talking to us, unless you have something else to bring us.
No memos of interest, though.
There are no MOIs, but we
have
do
an
have
open
folks
discussion.
coming in for open discussion, so more time you can take.
Yeah. So we will take a break until 2 o'clock, and then we can start with future agendas and those things until Liz gets here. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you. We will resume our meeting. It is Tuesday, February 3rd, Pittman County Commissioners work session. And the next item on the agenda are kind of our business protocol, memos of interest, future agendas, board reports, and open discussion. I am expecting Liz Stark to show up for our open discussion, and so we'll just proceed until she arrives, maybe stop, and then proceed from there so she can get back to work and talk about some of those issues. John.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. So there are no MOIs today. Not a whole lot on future agendas. I just note on February 10th, we did get a discussion added on agricultural leases for open space and trails. We have a half-hour scheduled to discuss the retreat. We may move some things around and get a little bit more time. During open discussion today is going to talk just about some of the ideas around the retreat as a preview and kind of gauge how much time we might need for retreat prep based on your reactions to that. Other than that, we're still building out we've got some open spaces, especially once we get into later February and March. We'll be filling those up, and don't have anything else on future agendas at this point.
George?
Two things, John. One, February 11th, our next regular meeting, we have under public hearing, second readings, the resolution adopting special events regulations. So that was just continued, so that should...
That will go away. That just got caught in that by Wednesday we're starting to get these things published.
The other thing is, we have quarterly meetings with our Open Space and Trails Board. And I think we used to have actually occasionally meetings with our Healthy Rivers and Streams Board. And I think we should try to have a meeting with them. I think we should have probably at least semi-annually, but there's a lot going on with some of our land use acquisitions that entails Healthy Rivers and Streams Board approvals and funding. So it would be good for us to sit down with them as we do with the Open Space and Trails Board.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Another one of your active boards is your Planning and Zoning Commission also, that you don't have a regular meeting. I wonder if there are some of the boards, advisory boards and commissions that are pretty active making important policy decisions that the board might, that maybe we want even get on a biannual or is that right, twice every year or something like that, just to sit down and talk about issues and expectations. Because I think you're right, what we're seeing is Healthy Rivers and Streams, their activity is increasing now. Are there any others, I guess I'd throw out there while we're at that may be appropriate?
Didn't we used to do it with P&Z, did we tag it on at the end of one of our meetings, at the beginning of one of theirs, and so we do like an hour so that they didn't have to come in on a different day? I can't really remember.
I think with Healthy Rivers and Streams, they typically meet around 4, so we did that, and probably with P&Z as well.
Yeah, so that would, and I can't remember how often we met with P&Z, if it was just once a year?
It all depended on the
And then if we were doing
workload,
master
because when we
plans
were
or
working
the-
through amendments and things like that, and I think that we should really note this as being something for John to work into the schedules going forward. I do think it's a good idea. We have met with the Healthy Rivers and Streams Board towards the end of 2014, but knowing how far out our schedules go, it's important to try to get one set up in advance and go from there. And perhaps at the retreat we can talk more about other boards or commissions. Something I had noted to John just in talking to him yesterday is that, in the past we've been able to meet with the Colorado Mountain College Board when they had a meeting up here. And I think that would be one to try to set up again if they're meeting anywhere in our area. We had talked with them before, and I think they've changed presidents since, but, could you do some mechanic training in our area that would help with all the drivers we need for RAFTAs and things? Could you work on a chef program to help train our workforce? How do we integrate them better with the workforce preparedness stuff that Northwest COG does, things like that? So that's a meeting I'd like to see us have when it's appropriate, when the schedule matches. They are one of the largest tax bases out of Pickens County, and I think it's important.
but we can work on
The general concept.
ones that you've identified for sure.
Anyone else have comments on the future agendas? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. And again, we had no memos of interest, so we will go to board reports. And Patty, that would put you up first with Northwest Council of Governments.
Yes, it was fun going back to Northwest Colorado Council of Governments. It was interesting because they started the meeting off with the loan fund that's part of Northwest COG and their activity. They've picked up, they don't usually do a lot of loans in our valley, but they've picked up some small business loans. They've already allocated their monies for this year, so they're asking for more monies to put out there for for loans. Trying to encourage them to come over here and look at our small agricultural opportunities. They weren't aware that we're having these CSAs, and maybe that's a funding opportunity they can look at in our valley that's different from the Vail Valley. So they're going to kind of keep a heads up on that, and I'm going to keep them in tune to that issue. The Northwest COG meeting was great. It was general business. Carrie from O'Carin from Summit County was reelected as chairman. They wanted me to jump in the fray, and I said, give me a couple years to get back on board because I think Karen does a great job. She's right there in Summit County. We just talked about general business budget issues. Things seem to be going well. Their individual departments are very busy. The elevator business is actually going to have to bring somebody on because of all the new construction. The interesting thing, too, was when each of the member jurisdictions gave a little update, everybody's economies were turning around, excited, some great projects going on, a lot of interest in broadband projects, support for the state bill going through. We did give our grants out, the small DOLA grants. They extended that. Are you guys aware? They extended there's $11,800 left in the grants, so they kicked it back out. They're looking for maybe next year doing an accumulated grant, so maybe something we could get in the valley-wide with the different member jurisdictions to put in one big grant application. Their thinking is maybe instead of doing a bunch of little small grants that kind of maybe don't even go anywhere, other jurisdictions could fund themselves, to do a major project with multiple jurisdictions, which is something we should be thinking about over this next year. Maybe a broadband issue, something that's kind of in the trend right now. The next meeting, there were three, was the Economic Development District meeting, kind of just still gearing it up. It's still relatively new. As I said, lots of issues going on in the Vail corridor, I-70 corridor, a lot of it with growth and development issues. Growth in the workforce, not growth in buildings. So it was interesting. I'm vice chair of the Economic Development District. Rob had been serving as chair. I decided to get my feet wet before I jumped into that fray also. So it was good. It was really nice to be back at that table. A lot of new faces, some of the same familiar faces, but I'm glad to see that Northwest COG is still solid. Their issues have kind of taken a different turn. Rural Resort Region, on the other hand, is more this workforce issue. The meetings are great. You go to CMC and sit there on the computer and get to attend the meetings rather than drive all over the western slope. Those meetings are interesting. I really have a lot to learn. I'm not quite sure what Pickens County is doing at that table, other than you're required to have each of the local counties have a member at the table. So we'll see how that goes. That's a whole new learning curve for me, but it was nice to be able to attend that meeting right here at our own CMC campus. It was great.
Very nice, and thank you for taking that on.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I saw that Liz came in the back door, so.
Yeah, but let's go ahead with George and have the core update so she has a moment to catch her breath.
No meeting.
A very quick moment to catch her breath. Okay. Let's go ahead and have Liz come up. And I forwarded an email to John Peacock last week. There is a bill that has been introduced, and it's called the Long Active Reversible Contraception Bill. And this relates to IUDs. And for the past 4 years, there has been private funding in the state of Colorado at a teen pregnancy and prevention program. And it was provided anonymously and for the state to work on these sort of issues and to create a baseline, a fact sheet of whether this was a valuable type of investment for the state to make or for others to make. And the results that have been reported are at a 40% reduction in unintended pregnancies and teen pregnancies. And so Casey Becker, who is a representative from the Front Range in Boulder, has introduced a bill that this will now be continued funding through the state of Colorado. The donor made their generous gift. It proved the program of value, and now it is up to the state to determine whether they'd like to go forward with it or not. And so I wanted to be able to get the board's reaction, the board's sentiments of support, to see if we could send a letter of support for this or not. And John, of course, contacted Liz as our community health director to be able to weigh in and let us know how this has been utilized in our community. So please, Liz, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, this is, thanks for letting me come and talk about this. This is really exciting for us, public health. We were a recipient of this initial grant that started in 2009. And again, it's to fund these long-acting reversible contraceptives, and those include intrauterine devices, IUDs, and devices called Nexplanon or Implanon, and that's an implantable hormonal device. Both of those devices can be inserted and are effective for 3 to 5 years. So it's a really consistent method of birth control for women. So what we found in our program, what we were given these funds, I think in the beginning our total grant was maybe $75,000 in the first year. And it was really just pass-through money for us to purchase those methods and then pass them on to our clients for free. And so it's just been a very successful program of ours.
Did you say $75,000?
In the very beginning. But each year that amount has decreased as we were notified from the very beginning of this program that that amount of funding would decrease year after year. And of course this year, for 2000, the year that's ending in June 2015, we received $11,000 to purchase these methods. So we've continued to purchase them based on the demand, but we're not getting those funds from that anonymous donor through that program any longer. So we're really funding them through additional, Pickens County grant and all of those other sort of unallocated funding sources that we have are sort of covering the cost of those now to keep up with demand. I did try to pull some Pickens County data related to the impacts of this program, and you may have seen this in the national media since last summer. This program has gotten national attention based on the results in terms of, as Rachel mentioned, reduction in unintended pregnancies, reduction in abortion rates, reduction in teen pregnancies. And just looking at the Pickens County data, which our numbers are small, but I looked at 2008 before the program was initiated, in 2013, which is the most current data that I have, and the birth rate among women ages 10 to 19 dropped from 4.1% to 0%. So we did see, for whatever reason, we want to attribute that to this program having an impact. We did have some teen pregnancies in 2008 in those ages between 10 and age 19, but in 2013 we did not have any teen pregnancies in Pickens County. Live births related to among women who are unmarried, being single is considered one of those high-risk categories of pregnancy. So the live births to unmarried women went from 18.2% to 12.2%. So we did see a reduction in pregnancies among women who were single. And another indicator of a high-risk birth would be someone with a lower education level. And the live births in Pickens County to women with an education of less than high school or GED went from 19.2 to 9.9% from 2008 to 2013. So I think that we have seen some of the same benefits locally. And I also want to mention that this is the family planning program, a Title X program that is, we do get grants from the state to operate. We're the only Title X program in the Roaring Fork Valley. So women can access these methods on a sliding fee scale. And the majority of the women that we serve in this program have an income, according to the federal poverty level, of less than 200%. So we're serving the lowest income women in this program. And so about 50% of our clients generally live in Pitkin County, and 1/4 are from the western Eagle County, and another quarter are actually from Garfield County. That's an average over the years. So we're serving women up and down the valley in this program. It has no geographic boundaries. So we're making an impact in this program for women, not just in Pitkin County, but in our valley.
Thank you.
What else can I tell you about it?
It's amazing. Those statistics are remarkable, actually.
Yeah.
They're huge statistics.
Yeah, they are. And of course, I don't have access to our reduction in abortion rates. That's a state data point that's been reported. But we really are seeing a high demand, and particularly for young women. You know, taking a birth control pill requires you to remember it every single day. It's not the most reliable method out there for young women, and so it's a very popular, safe, reliable method for young women. And we have actually over the last year been struggling to figure out how can we sustain this program, knowing that this grant funding is being eliminated. So, and the intent of us beginning to take insurance, and this was a big push from the family planning program for years, was to make sure that we were set up to take Medicaid and private insurance. The idea was that we could take that, for the women that have insurance, we could take the income that we receive from them and put it back into the program and turn around and buy additional methods. But for whatever reason, the demographic for us in this program is that most of our women are uninsured and low income. So we're not at a place yet where we're really able to see the sustainability of it through those means of using that increased insurance income, because most of these women are not insured. Most of our women get their services for free based on their income. So we don't have those client fees and that insurance income yet to really support it. So this proposal to have it be a line item in the general fund is the answer for us really to sustain it.
Yep. I'll just say something quickly and then see if any other board members have questions. But I've always been a big believer in an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And this is certainly one of those programs. And you can look at it from the human and the social side of someone's life not being uninterrupted with unintended pregnancy. But if that's the case, the likelihood of completing high school is so much higher. The likelihood of going to college is so much higher if you've not had an unintended pregnancy. That those who do end up with unintended pregnancies, often without a real means of supporting themselves or the child later in the future, end up on the social services program in some other way. Whether it's Medicaid, whether it's temporary assistance to needy families, whether it's women and infant children, whether it's child care subsidy while they work. You know, it just is, this is a move that is being really heralded for preventing that cycle of poverty and for preventing the just kind of, living the same nightmare over and over of not having control of your life, not having enough to feed your kids, being at the food bank, not having, been prepared. And so it's something that may or may not be controversial to people, but I think supporting this bill and being able to offer a letter of Pitkin County that we do support it is in keeping with the grants that we make to the Planned Parenthood in Glenwood Springs through the Healthy Community Foundation, Fund, and I'd like to see us support this so that we can continue the work we've been able to do through community health. George?
Well, I would certainly support it. I was just curious, has CCI taken a stance on this yet, or are they?
No, what's always awkward is that until a bill has dropped, CCI doesn't take a position on it. So we had our January meeting, but until we meet again in February, we won't take positions on new bills. People will be lobbying individually. So, Patty?
I would definitely support a letter, and maybe Liz can get together with staff and they can draft it using some of our local statistics. I think it's important to point out the savings that, like Rachel pointed out, the savings that we see in the long run by the intervention we do in the beginning. I think that's critical.
Yeah, and this is fully a choice program. I mean, it's up to the individuals to choose, to ask, and to want this sort of service for their own personal health.
I mean, I'm assuming Eagle County is going to support that coming from a commissioner. I'm just curious about Garfield County, since we're actually serving women in Garfield County, if they're...
I do not know. I haven't communicated with them. I think part of our serving them in our community health has always been the One Valley workforce approach, as opposed to we're wanting to interfere with what they do in their county or not. So I frankly don't know what their position would be on it.
And remember, Garfield County doesn't have a Title X program. They do have Planned Parenthood. That's a different model. And so really these funds would go to Title X clinics. So none of these funds would go directly to Garfield County. Eagle County does have a Title X clinic in of course, the Eagle Valley side. And I would imagine there would be in support of it too. Of course, we serve the Western Eagle County clients here.
Right.
Yeah, Eagle County is part of who was soliciting the letters to help support the
Right.
program, so they're definitely in support of it as far as I understand. So is that a nod of heads from the board
Oh,
to
yeah.
support
Thanks,
a
Liz.
nice letter, and thank you very
Great
much. And
information.
We'll
Yeah, thank you.
allow that to, I guess you could get a hold of me. I'm available to sign this week. I'm here in town if there's something ready tomorrow or something like that.
We'll get it off.
Full email.
Okay, great.
And we can at least contact the sponsor by email and let them know they will have our support, and a letter will be forthcoming.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and coming on
Keep
down
in that
here.
loop.
Okay. We will now go back to our board reports. And the next one up is QQ, Northwest Council of Governments Water Quality Quantity. That meeting is going to be on March 11th from 10 to 3 in Summit County. That will conflict with one of our regular meetings, so I've asked the attorney staff if they might be able to have someone attend, because I will be here, or someone else from the Healthy Rivers and Stream Board. And they always try to schedule on days when we don't have our regular meeting, but because our retreat date was floating back and forth for so long, they just finally had to schedule one. The other thing that we should be aware of, if anybody would like to attend, is the very next day, the 12th, the Thursday of March, there will be the all-basin meetings from all the basins of Colorado working on the water plan, and that will be somewhere down in Westminster. The only thing to really report on QQ, they're kind of taking preliminary positions on bills, and then kind of checking in with the members through email, because it's just awkward that this meeting isn't in February and the bills start dropping, but it's either, they only meet quarterly anyhow, so most is kind of paired off of what we had supported or opposed in years past. And the one item I would mention that I think is really showing a bit of progress, or has promise behind it at least, let's put it that way, is QQ has begun a series of dialogues with Front Range County Commissioners and Mayors through a group that's called the CMAC, and it's the county commissioners and mayors across the Front Range, to talk about how we can beef up the land use planning section of the state water plan. And that it's not mandates, and no one wants mandates, but to both increase the awareness that we could all do better with conserving our land and our water, and how do we break down the silos between politicians who approve subdivisions and growth and land use planners who are reviewing and offering comments to those decision makers, and then to the water providers who really see their job as just going out and getting the water, and not regardless of whether it's good growth, bad growth, efficient growth, or whatever. And so we've had our second meeting on that. I think we're coming up with some good statements. There were staff from both CCI and from QQ taking notes to try to pull it together for our next meeting on that, and I think that comes up in March. But the goal is to have comments to augment the state water plans, land use planning section, when they take comments coming up in April and May, because that is kind of really gelling, and I have to say that's a section of the plan that's really pretty thin. There's a little bit of, let's talk about model codes, but that's about all so far. I would also comment that I went down to the Club 20 legislative session in Denver for Thursday and Friday of last week, and Friday morning we met with the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce and went over their policy positions. It was very interesting that at least 4 of their 5 priority goals really are affecting West Slope issues and are involved in West Slope issues. One of those is water, the other is fracking in oil and gas, finally having transportation funding. Oddly enough, they noted partisanship as one of the bigger issues, and I'll come back to that in a moment. but they had James Eklund, the head of the Colorado Water Conservation Board, come in to address the group, and I was able to meet with him for a few minutes after the general presentation and offered that we are doing this work with QQ and CMAC, and he said that would be great if you can get any affirmative statements or consensus statements about how we should start to increase the land use components as it relates to water demand and demand management. They'd be very excited to see that. So that's pretty much the QQ report. Sorry to keep monologuing you guys, but with CCI up next and Steve not here, just came back from the main CCI meetings were the 22nd and 23rd. We took our first positions on various bills that day for the various committees. We updated a little bit last week, but Steve was here. Michael, I know you were not here, but the one thing that really was very significant within that organization was they passed a bylaws change to now require a supermajority of 65% before taking a position on a bill or legislative matters. And this was important because it creates a little more protection for the minority point of view in the organization, perhaps a little more respect for it, and it forces folks to try to work together for finding language, amendments, additions or deletions from bills so that we can all support it as a single group and not be pitting ourselves against each other as often. So CCI is still going through a few reverberations from their oil and gas resolution that caused so much controversy back in December, but it seems to be waters are calming, and the vast majority of the group voted again for bylaw changes that would help keep the group together instead of which we were seeing was a significant numbers of counties questioning whether they should stay in the group or not. And so that is pretty much the CCI update. It is getting fast and furious. John had a request, I think, this morning from our Senator Kerry Donovan for a letter of support from Pickens County on an issue that is valuable, a grant program we've participated in the past and which has CCI support. And so we, at the last meeting, clarified with Steve Child here how we should speak to these issues as representatives to CCI, primarily to say, we are the voting delegates at CCI, and we can represent Pickens County's position there. But as some of these other things come out as fast and furious, it's more of an individual matter of saying, I support this, but we do not have a formal board position, or I believe our county supports this, we can get a formal position, and that's exactly why I made sure that last issue came in, and we talked about it as a board instead of me just saying, oh, I'm sure that we would support that, in case anybody had objections. So that's the CCI report. And I'll go straight into the Club 20 report. Club 20 did just have its legislative sessions in Denver last week. They started with a tour of aerospace facility on the Front Range. They've been working in a partnership to try to bring more West Slope manufacturing jobs from the aerospace industries across the Front Range. And there could be some real promise there, and frankly I think it'd be nice to see some of the West Slope economies a little diversified off of oil and gas and more into manufacturing and sustainable, less boom bust types of jobs. So that was a good set of connections. We then heard from all of our state legislators, various bills that they're working on, comments back to them, presentation by the governor as well to the group. And I was able to bring up our concerns related to broadband, and that is a CCI issue and a Pickens County issue. So those were very productive meetings, and then, as I said before, we met with the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce the next day. And it's just going to be really important to remain engaged with these folks as they tend to really influence a lot of the outcome of potential ballot measures that go forward for the state. They carry a lot of heft down at the Capitol. It was interesting to hear one comment, education was one of their top priorities, but they said that they just didn't really think it'd be worth putting any more or new money into the state education until we start seeing high school graduation rates in the top 10% of the country and these sort of things, and they have these standards that we need to ask more first before we give you more money. And just had to comment, well, that's interesting, but I bet once we get up to those statistics, everyone's going to say, well, look, it doesn't need more money. We're in the top 10. So I don't know if they set up an impossible bar there. The other item, it seemed like they were working on, and the director said that they were kind of surprised that from their member surveys, this rose to the top 5 issues for their group, but it was the level of partisanship that is now infiltrating our capital as well as Washington, D.C., and how difficult it's getting to be to get anything done in D.C. or in the state of Colorado. And what their approach is going to be, I'm not sure if they're going to have a ballot measure right now or they're getting something introduced or whatever, is to say that right now the single largest party in Colorado is independents. There are more independents registered than Democrats or than Republicans, and that particularly younger generations are registering independent. But that really precludes them from participating in the primary process right now. It's a convoluted step that you could go and register Republican to vote in the Republican primary, and then afterwards you have to go and get unregistered to go back to being an independent or an unaffiliated. And they would like to run a ballot measure that unaffiliated will get a ballot in the primary. They can only vote one or the other. They can only vote one party or the other, but that unaffiliates begin to weigh in at the primary level about who should be the candidates for federal state offices. So don't know if that's going to go anywhere or not. As I said, the only people who'd be opposed to it are Democrats and Republicans. So we don't know, but it is at least some attempt to try to deal with some of the partisanship that is really kind of crippling any sort of progress.
And that came out of Club 20?
No, that came out of the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce as they presented it to Club 20.
I can't see Club 20 doing that.
No. Well, they really would actually, the biggest issue everybody really would like to change is the easy access to the state ballot to amend the state constitution. You shouldn't have bear hunting regulations in your state constitution. You shouldn't have, exemptions for chicken farmer taxes in your state constitution. These things should be statutory. But in the past, all the different proposals and ballot measures that would modify that system to either increase the threshold number of names you have to get signatures, or to say you have to get a certain number of signatures from each congressional district, those have all fallen flat. So no one holds out any great hope on those areas. And so that's enough of Club 20 in Denver. Their spring meeting, for anyone who would like to attend, will be at the end of March. That's when they'll pass all the new resolutions, the 27th and the 28th. And then their subcommittee meetings are coming up the last 2 weeks of this month, which I won't be attending too many of those because of the DC NACO trip. Next, we have to change the order on these things. Colorado River Basin Roundtable met in Glenwood Springs on Monday of last week. Some of the biggest issues continue to be this 7 conceptual points of discussion or agreement, which are being called the 7 points of a framework. They're really searching for the right term for it, under which a dialogue about future new trans-mountain diversions would occur. And our basin and roundtable is not very into any of that, and have really questioned a lot of the terminology that's being used of what is a trigger that says when a new diversion could or couldn't divert, what defines a wet year, what defines a, quote, insurance policy for the western slope that we won't be unduly impacted if there's a future compact call. And unfortunately for me, it just feels like it's all getting brought to this technical water level in Lake Powell and Lake Mead level, that when they're okay here, then we can divert, and nothing about the river health on the western slope, whether our rivers on the western slope need a flushing flow, whether they need some overtopping of the bank, and wouldn't new trans-mountain diversions really consign many of our rivers to a permanent dry up or permanent semi-arid state. And so, but that's just moving along apace. Unfortunately, we have some power when we're speaking together as the 4 west slope basins, the Yampa White, Colorado, Gunnison, and Southwest, but there's disagreements. I mean, the Gunnison believes that there is more water to divert through trans-mountain diversion. The Yampa White believes there may be more water to divert, but the Colorado Basin does not believe there's more water left to divert. We're already short in many of our streams. And so you get kind of getting negotiations going sideways between Gunnison and Yampa. The Yampa area, beautiful area, very much less developed, very much less activity, and they're quite afraid that since they're the last ones who are developing, that it's their water that's going to be diverted, and they're not going to have a chance for their own economic future or development. And the Gunnison is kind of like, well, that's your fault. You know, we're not giving up any of our water so that they don't impact you so much. And so all these things are just continuing to sort themselves out. Go from there.
So they're saying that it's okay to divert as long as it's not our water.
To somewhat, and of course Gunnison has the big Blue Mesa Reservoir,
Right.
and if we get to a point where there is a compact haul or the water levels in Powell are too low for power generation, they would be emptying Blue Mesa for
Dump it in
the first dump of water to try and get that back up.
Well, isn't Lake Mead more threatened even than Powell for electricity generation?
No, it's Powell is the big player, and there are equalization rules that were created when Gail Norton was Secretary of the Interior, and they almost play against us in Colorado because if the water levels come up this much, because it's a big, good year, they have to dump X amount more into Lake Mead. But if the water levels fall below power generation levels in Lake Powell, that is a major source of revenue for the Department of Interior. And so it would affect both the wholesale and retail rates of electricity for tens of millions of customers. It would affect the money available for the salinity control program. It would affect money available for the endangered fish program and the department as a whole. So while the compact agreement from 1922 doesn't talk about that, the on-the-ground reality is the Department of Interior is not going to let that happen. And there is
find water to keep that level up.
There is currently a working group that's being funded by California and Denver Water and a few other players to try to talk to people about what they're calling demand management. And that essentially is about talking to farmers about fallowing their fields on the western slope. So we're already kind of starting to see those impacts hit us on the western slope very heavily. And we're not going to, we may see some effort to fallow some or reduce the take from the diversions eastward to be part of this demand management. I'm sure all of you know that last year the people who buy water from Powell received 765,000 acre feet less than they had in the previous years. So they're already kind of starting to have to cut back. Okay, that's the Colorado Ground Basin. We come quickly to Rudeye Water and Power Authority, Michael.
Rudeye Water and Power had a meeting about a month ago, but didn't have a quorum, so nothing happened. We're going to have a retreat in March. Accra, I wasn't in town for that meeting. RAFTA, I guess the biggest discussion was about parking at our RAFTA lots. They're full, and people are concerned that they're full also of cars that shouldn't be there. People who are not using RAFTA, so they're going to try to deal with that. I don't know, were there any other issues, George, that were major?
The Rio Grande Trail Access Plan is available for comment right now.
That'll be coming up, yeah. So, and that's of concern to Picken County people who live on the wrong side of the tracks. So, and it's a serious matter for people who have to go across the railroad tracks to access their property. So we'll see what happens. We're going to have an update for that at our next meeting, which is next week, Thursday. That's it.
Can I ask, which lots are they finding that people who are not riding the bus are parking? I mean, in particular, is there
Well,
a big...
I mean, I think it's anecdotal. I've seen people park their vans there.
Like long-term?
Yeah, I mean, all kinds of stuff.
So there's
Parking.
all kinds of abuses.
What happened was that in order to qualify for a federal grant, RAFTA chose the Small Starts grant, which had limited funding, to only $25 million. And so the possibility of buying enough parking had to be, you just had to slice that away. And so there probably is less parking than is necessary, but we're gonna have to find other strategies. There are other parking lots that are not utilized and that can
Right.
be used. So, so that's the result of success, essentially.
How is the overflow parking lot, didn't they create an overflow parking lot in Carbondale when they built the new one right on 133? Well, the new one, the smaller one, which is full, the lot. And then they have the other one down at Main Street, and didn't they do one in town, Carbondale too, that they have the circulating bus too?
Well, that's not a RAFTA lot, but RAFTA is increasing the size of their lot in Carbondale.
Okay.
So
So I know that that's a really heavily used, and people really appreciate the BRT from down there.
everybody does.
And-
BRT is great, actually.
Okay, so Nordic Council.
I actually made an order council meeting, first of the year, and we had a request, sort of an annual request, coming from the bike community to allow fat bikes to utilize the Nordic trails on the golf course and the Moreau property. And the Nordic Council is really an advocacy group whose mission is to promote the quality of a seamless Nordic system. And the board, the council felt that having bicycles on the Nordic system was not compatible with that mission. And there were safety concerns as well. And so we denied that request, but we encouraged the Bike Association to work with the city to develop a trail program on their own that would not interfere with the Nordic system.
So potentially using some of the same properties, but a separate trail?
It could be if the city wishes to pursue that and provide
Maintain it.
funding to do that as well.
Okay.
So the council was not opposed to that, but we just didn't feel it was copacetic to have bicycles,
Good mix.
skiers, pedestrian walkers, dogs on the same trail.
Thank you. And then Intermountain CPR.
Did not make that one.
Very good. Well, I think that finishes our board reports. Did anybody else have any questions of other members? Okay, there being none, we would then move to open discussion.
Thanks, Rachel. I just had a couple items. First, just so the board knows, we do have the RFP out for design and engineering on the addition to the annex that will be that closes on the 19th of this month. So we're going to be going through a selection process, hopefully here before the end of the month on that design team. So we will be getting in front of you all pretty soon to start talking about that project and process after we make that selection. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I think it's kind of related, we've set aside time next week to talk about our retreat, but I thought I'd use some of the extra time we have today to talk about at least how staff is thinking about it, to see if we're on the same page, and we can spend our time, our scheduled time next week, getting into more detail on how we want our retreat time spent. But stepping back, when we adopted the budget this year, we really focused on themes of infrastructure renewal and modernization, and we are looking at making a number of investments in the community that all represent changes, us dealing with changes in service demands or changes that we'll be making to our infrastructure that we use to provide service. It's going to be a big few years in terms of planning and thinking about those things and making decisions. And so it seemed, at least from a staff perspective, I know a theme that we're talking about, and we thought a theme for the retreat would be to deal with that concept of change a little bit. What are the leadership challenges around change? What are some strategies for effectively managing change, both in the organization and as we're moving forward? and really building the retreat around that theme, especially as we're making these infrastructure investments and really making changes. It's going to be a challenge for you as a board and the decisions that we're going to be asking you to make on the behalf of the community, on behalf of our organization over the next couple years. It's going to be a challenge, I think, for staff at a number of levels, and so we thought beginning a dialogue about that, and what might we expect, and how do we organize ourselves to anticipate and manage in that environment would be a good overarching theme. Now, of course, there are some ideas behind that too, but I guess I'd want to do a check-in first. Does that make sense to you guys?
George?
I like that concept. I want to suggest maybe another idea to add to it. And that was sort of following up on my suggestion last week with our upcoming joint city council meeting this afternoon. And that is perhaps to take that idea, concept of change, look at all the work we've done on our mission statement the last few years, and see where we can work with, partner with, interact with our other municipalities. So where the last few years we've had some panel members come in and have a dialogue. Perhaps we invite some members from City Council and Town of Snowmass Village Council to sit in and have a broader dialogue in terms of what the concept of change may mean for them as well, the impacts to the municipalities and how we can interact and partner.
I would add Basalt to that too. I think that's a good idea, but Basalt didn't they just kind of mention that they'd like to be a little more involved? I know the airport was coming up, and so they're kind of seeing that I think it would only be fair to offer that.
They're going through a lot of change too.
Yeah. Times they are changing, that's for sure.
Other thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, things are changing. Bob Dylan has an album out of Frank Sinatra songs, which is like unbelievable. That's a change I didn't see.
Bob Dylan has a Frank Sinatra album?
Yes.
Yeah, all Frank Sinatra songs. Bob Dylan.
Wow.
Wrap your head around that.
I always wanted to hear that
Maybe that can be our theme
growl
music.
applause.
I can't, I gotta hear that one. I can't wrap my head around
So
it.
that'll be the theme music for the retreat. I think it's a good concept. There is a lot of change. A lot of people haven't difficulty with it. A lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people don't know it's coming. So, and there's manifestations of it. The art museum, the music associates, the new hospital. I mean, those are physical manifestations of it. But there's also a valley change. I think the valley's changed entirely. So, I think George is right. We need other jurisdictions involved, at least informally. And I think it's a good concept.
Very good. Other comments on that or questions?
This isn't about that, it's just about the whole, we're gonna talk more detail next week.
Yeah.
I just have some other thinkings. I'll keep it in mind for next week.
So what we'll do next week is I wanted to do a concept check-in. We'll propose a basic agenda structure and try and explain it within the context of that theme, and then if you guys think, yeah, this looks like the basic structure, this makes sense, or we tweak it, then we set about getting it set up.
Okay. Very good. And did you have other open discussion items?
That's all I've got today. Yeah.
Anybody else have other open discussion items? Michael?
I don't know if anybody's been to the Intercept lot, but the post X Games results of the Intercept lot has been to trash the Intercept lot. So that's something I think we need to talk about if we get around to the master plan for the Intercept lot. It's in terrible condition. And it's a shame because the parts that are in terrible condition were parts that we try to maintain and irrigate and grow grass, and there's no trace of that. It's gone. And it's just sad.
Whatever happened to that living asphalt turf stuff we were
Well,
talking about?
we didn't have that. I mean, we had
We never got that.
the unfinished part of the parking lot's fine. It's the easternmost end and the westernmost end,
Okay.
which were irrigated areas that are that are completely trashed. So,
Yeah, I would like to make sure we can follow up on that appropriately, and I don't know when the next EOTC meeting is, but we could put in a formal request for, a report, debrief from the X game, use of the parking lot, what condition was it in, and how will it be restored to whatever. And
Yeah. And I'd remind the board that we did get it on a list of topics to talk about the management of the intercept lot, because, I think as Michael's pointing out, the areas that get used are permitted for certain events, but they're also posted for no commercial parking. And we said, we probably, it's not that we need to stop these things from happening, but we probably need to have a more deliberate plan about, how are we going to anticipate and manage the impacts and such. And so we had put that on the list for EOTC project or discussions in this
so the
upcoming year.
meeting, probably. Because Patty is right in trying to reach back to the memory long ago, and I think some of the other board members were there, but there were decisions about whether to put in more of the grass pavers or only to pave so much to begin with. And I know Jack Hatfield was really adamant about not doing more than we need to, but we've never rediscussed when would there be a time to do that expanded grass pavers, or is it necessary, that overkill, and that would be a EOTC spending question. So, but we should really look at what the annual cleanup and repair costs are and start to make those evaluations.
well, it also is part of change. I mean, I think there's changing uses there. So, there was discussion about bathrooms there, and that's probably a good idea. It never happened because RAFTA didn't have enough funding, but we should think about it. There's no overnight parking, but there's now a shuttle essentially to the airport. The BRT is a 15-minute shuttle to the airport. So why couldn't you leave? There's all kinds of new uses. Snowmass is going to be using that lot a lot more. So let's, and it's just, it's an asset that we're not really taking care of or maximizing, I think. So we need to do that.
Very good, I agree with that. The only open discussion I have would just be a kind of a note to our staff to figure out how and when we get plugged into this process. But the governor did say that he's going to be updating the economic blueprint that they had put together at the beginning of the first term to work on the revival of our economy through the Great Recession. And they're not trying to start it over again from scratch or anything like that, but they are going to update it. And in the past, our efforts and thoughts were funneled through Northwest Council of Governments. I'm not sure if that would still be the right conduit, whether Rachel Linney is going to have new meetings about it, whether the governor's staff is going to have new listening sessions and hearings. I just don't know. It's just reference that that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, I didn't hear it come up. The only thing I heard about the reference to it was that it kind of was a plan that Mother Nature took care of herself, because a lot of the economic resurgence kind of happened without really activating any parts of the plan. So maybe they're going to look at that part of the picture.
Yeah, I do not know, because the final product of weaving together all these individual regions into one plan was difficult. And, we really kept emphasizing that, the natural environment, protection of the natural environment was our economic engine. And that seemed to be the most important to us. And then issues surrounding adequate transportation investment was very important across the West Slope, the corridors that connect us, obviously, and things like that. So anyhow, it may be something for Cindy Hooven to look into. I think she may have been heading it up for us before.
Yeah.
But to say, when is there opportunity, and do we need to update, and how do we need to be involved?
Well, and it made me think that part of the Economic Development District discussion brought up affordable housing. Mm-hmm. And there were not very many old faces at that table, and so Rachel and I were going, and Liz, and Mullen, we were all going, wait a minute, we did this whole thing, trying to bring that back, bring in new, so you have the model, stick in the new data, as part of the workforce development. A part of economic development was there's no places to house people. So that is another topic that you might see coming back.
Yeah, and that would certainly mesh with our goals if there was more emphasis on that through the state.
When you brought up transportation, that was kind of brought in that vein.
Okay. Very good. Well, with nothing else, we are meeting at City Hall at 4 p.m. We had wanted to invite them over to our beautiful meeting room, but we had a conflict because somebody else was in here. We'll have to do that next time. And we will be doing a little bit of updating on various issues. The larger discussion is set aside, it's on these APCHA proposed revisions. For those of you who are on your web, as opposed to a paper packet, the revisions are on page 16, 18, 35, 37, 44, and 65 of the housing guidelines. So we only have an hour for that conversation with a lot of people, so I'll try and be concise.
They did a nice job of flagging this.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you in an hour.
Charlotte.
Is
Oh,
the
sorry.
city of Aspen, who's chairing the meeting?
We're chairing, and we're buying hors d'oeuvres to start the meeting to try and break the ice on the informal time.
Hors d'oeuvres, what kind of hors d'oeuvres?
Well, I don't manage to that level of detail, Michael, because otherwise it would be little cocktail
I know the
weenies.
Butcher's Block has caviar and sandwiches.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
don't think
available.
I don't think it's that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Grassroots.
Charlotte and Susan always make appropriate choices.
Okay.